I think we can go ahead and get started. I've got 11 o'clock here on my clock. So thank you all for joining us today for our May edition of the Small Business webinar series. Before we get started about today's, I just want to make a couple reminders. The website where you logged in today also has recordings of all of our past sessions. So if you want to go back and look at one that we did in the past or share it with a friend, or also if you missed part of this or think today's is great and want to share it with someone else, we'll be posting the recording to that site, likely late this afternoon or tomorrow, just kind of depending on our staff time, but we'll get that up and available. So feel free to share that link with others after the fact as well. And before we start with today, I just want to also put in a plug for next month's small business webinar, which will be on June 1st at 11 o'clock. So again, first Thursday of the month. And next month, we are going to have a couple experts in accounting talk about quarterly and annual payroll reporting and kind of what needs to happen and when it needs to happen from a small business perspective. So mark your calendars for June 1st at 11 o'clock. And that'll be our June edition. So, and also a reminder of our sponsors before we get started. This series is free of charge, compliments of the different organizations that help us put this together, and that's America's Small Business Development Centers, Montana Department of Commerce, the Small Business Administration, Montana State University Extension, the Montana Economic Developers Association, University of Montana, and also Grow Great Falls, Montana. And with that, our speaker today is going to be a face I think that many of you will already be familiar with, Rich Gannon, who is the Small Business Development Center Rural Business Advisor associated with the Great Falls Development Authority. And he is going to explain to us how using AI to enhance your marketing strategies can help your small business. As far as questions today, feel free to send them in the chat window at any time. When we have a pause, we'll try to catch those. But then also at the end of the webinar, we will have an additional time for question and answer. And if you would like to unmute at that point and verbally ask your question, that would be great as well. So with that, I will turn it over to you, Rich.
Thanks, Joel. Everybody, my name is Rich Gannon. I'm a small business advisor with Montana Small Business Development Center and Great Falls Development Authority. And I'm going to talk to you today a little bit about using artificial intelligence for marketing. Before I became a small business advisor, I was a website designer, web developer, and digital marketer. So I've kind of been approaching the use of artificial intelligence specifically with an eye toward marketing, digital marketing. So with that, I'm going to share my screen. And I'm going to launch my PowerPoint. Can you see my PowerPoint, everybody? All right, great.
Looks good.
As Joel said, if anybody has got questions throughout, feel free to interrupt or type it in the chat. Joel will kind of monitor that. So I gotta get my controls going here. Okay, so what we're going to cover today a little bit is kind of an introduction of what an AI chatbot is. We're going to quickly preview different IA generation tools. Specifically, we're going to be working today with ChatGPT. That has really been making a big splash in the news in the last 4 months. And again, we're going to frame it around the use for marketing. What we're not going to talk about today is ethical considerations for using AI for content generation. There's plenty of ethical considerations for AI, but I am not going to get into any of that today. I'm not well informed enough on that to make a really good opinion on it. So really, what are these chatbots? Well, what they are is they're basically programs that have been trained or pre-programmed. They've been fed vast amounts of data. Like think basically the entire internet have been scraped by these programs. And using something called natural language processing, they've been able to analyze words and then use algorithms to predict which word could come next in a sentence. So in a way, they're kind of reading words and then kind of coming up with content based on some sort of algorithm that knows what the best next word should be. So they can understand language and commands and then provide a reasonable response based on existing data. So that's kind of what it is in a nutshell. I am by no means an expert. That's like the 50,000 or maybe the 150,000 foot view of what these things are. So there's lots of these platforms that are out there. We're going to be working today with ChatGPT. It's free to use. Google has another good one called Bard. They kind of had to rush it to the market because ChatGPT came out and I think November, and by January, it was like the most downloaded or most visited app out there. And I think it set records of like 100 million downloads on the App Store. You can actually get it as an app on your phone as well. Bing also incorporates ChatGPT in its search now, so you can use it there. And then there's a couple other, I mean, there's hundreds of other ones. A couple other ones that I have worked with that are pretty good is one called Copy AI and one called Jasper AI. And those also work kind of on the freemium model where you can get some free stuff initially, but then for advanced features, you have to pay for it. But like I said, what we're going to be working on today is something called ChatGPT. It's from a company called OpenAI. So you go to openai.com, you can create a free account. There's a $20 paid version that gives you a few more features. It also allows priority access when the demand is high. This is something I'm pretty worried about today because I was actually prepping for this today and ChatGPT was super duper slow, which is going to make for a horrible presentation today if that's the case when I log into it in a second. Some caveats: it's technically not currently connected to the internet, so it actually has limited knowledge of events after 2021. So a perfect example of this, a couple of months ago, I was in Helena with my family. My kids wanted to go see a movie. The two movies that were playing at that time both seemed like really bad choices. So I asked ChatGPT, hey, which one of these two movies? I think one was Cocaine Bear and another one was some science fiction movie. I said, which one of these movies has better rankings or better ratings? And the response I got back from the chatbot was that these movies were not yet released and they were planning to be released in late 2022. So there's a perfect example of it having imperfect knowledge. So it's not always foolproof, these things. Oh yeah, this slide. What does GPT stand for? G is for generative, so it generates response. P is for pre-trained, so it's pre-trained and programmed by humans. And then T is for transformer, so it transforms the inputs into meaningful outputs. So that's what GTP stands for. So the first thing I'm going to do, I'm going to quit my slideshow here in a second, but I'm going to demonstrate what I would call the low-hanging fruit. So this is the content creation that these bots can do. And I call it low-hanging fruit. It's like it's really simple. We're going to be putting prompts into it, and it's going to be replying to those prompts. So with that, I'm going to minimize my slideshow. Can people see my web browser now? Okay. So this is openai.com. This is their website. So if you were to create an account, you would just come here and you would click on ChatGPT, create a free account. I've got that up right here. After you, I'm going to zoom in a little bit there. After you log in, this is what the interface looks like. A very simple interface. On the left-hand side here is where your chat history will be stored. And you can actually turn that off in your settings. You can turn off chat history. So if you leave chat history on, what that does is it saves your chat history. It also reports that history to OpenAI and they can analyze it and make it better. Like anything with the internet, you probably should not be putting sensitive information in here. And a lot of people are concerned about privacy, so you can turn that off. That ensures that the questions and the responses that are generated just go away. I leave mine on. I'm not concerned about my privacy for that reason. So, and I think actually by entering these types of prompts and giving it feedback, it actually improves the program. So with that, we're going to start with some of the low-hanging fruit. I've got all of my prompts pre-written, so you don't have to see me on the struggle bus typing and misspelling every other word. So I'm going to just simply put a prompt in here. So today's presentation, what I'm forming this around is I'm going to assume that I'm a business owner starting an online hiking boot company that just sells hiking boots online. So this was I just picked this out at random as an example. Okay, so pretend, if you will, for a minute that I'm an entrepreneur starting an e-commerce store that's selling hiking boots. The first thing I would need to do is create a website. So I'm going to ask ChatGTP.
Those are the places that people really
muted.
feel that connection.
Create an outline for my hiking boot website. So here's what I said, create that outline. It's creating what could be a navigational structure for my website. So it's giving me the home page, which would be on there, the shopping page, the product page, the cart page, attributes, that type of stuff. So I'll say this now, and I'll probably repeat myself about 15 times today. Everything I'm going to ask ChatGTP, you could do it, I could do it. It's not rocket science. But what it does is it speeds up the entire process. So when I was doing web development with a client, the first thing I would do is let's frame out the structure of your website. Let's sit down and come up with what should be on how many pages you should have and what should be on each page. So I asked ChatGPT to do that for me, and it returned this response. And I would say it's a pretty good response, right? Homepage, shop page, product page, cart page, checkout page, about us page. So again, you could do that, I could do that, but I couldn't do it that fast. The next thing on the low-hanging fruit is to create a blog post on why cheap hiking boots are a bad option. So anybody who has ever created a website or has a business website has had the frustration of trying to get their website to rank in search, to rank highly in search. One of the best ways to get your website to rank high is to create a lot of content and create a lot of content often. And one of the best ways to create content is through the use of a blog. So that's always easier said than done because writing blogs is tedious and frankly kind of boring. So this program will do it for you, right? So here I said, create a blog post on why cheap hiking boots are a bad option. And so here it's creating an entire blog post on why cheap hiking boots are a bad option. Again, could I create a blog post on why cheap hiking boots are a bad option? Yes. Could the store owner do that? Yes. But not at the speed at which this can do it. I kind of liken this to, and I had to look this up. Imagine if you were an accountant or a bookkeeper or a data analyst in 1985, and somebody walked into your office and said, "Hey, I've got this new program called Excel. Would you want to use it?" I would say if you said no, you probably need to be looking for a new job. So I kind of think that's where we're at here with marketing content creation. I think we're at an inflection point where this is going to be really a way to augment all the work you're doing on on content creation and marketing. So the other thing you can do, again, low-hanging fruit, write an email marketing email to a possible lead, offer them 10% off sale for hiking boots and free shipping. So again, content creation, name of the game. And again, you could do this on your own, but not as fast as this. So it's just going to create a really nice crafted. And again, I did not type any of this. I've been asking these questions, but this is all doing this live. So this is all brand new content that's being created right now based on these prompts. So again, this is what I would call some of the low-hanging fruit for content creation. It's a really good tool for actually just creating this content for you like an assistant would. Where I think it really kind of has some new and interesting uses, this would kind of be the stuff I've showed you now is kind of maybe I'd call it the front-facing stuff, this stuff where, the content creation is going to go on your website. But I also think it's really good and handy for planning your marketing and then also maybe doing some analysis. So I'm going to ask it to create a marketing planner schedule for the week for social media and blog posts. And I'd like it to include Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. So again, I'll say it again, you could do this on your own. My client could do this on their own, but no one ever does. No one ever sits with a calendar and does this. So here's what it's coming up with. It's coming up with on Monday, here's a blog post about hiking tips with kids. Here's what you should put on Instagram and Twitter. Tuesday, here's your Facebook group post, your Instagram post, your Twitter post. So again, this is kind of the back end, the planning stage. So it's helping you plan. The other thing too, it's giving you content ideas for the blog post. So you don't even have to really technically think of the content for your blog post. So for example, on Friday, how to choose the right hiking boot for your adventure. You could copy that in here and then say, create a blog post on how to choose the right hiking boot for your next adventure, and it would create that post for you. So this is kind of the back end side of doing some planning. Anybody have any questions so far on what we're looking at or what we're doing?
Rich, we had a question come in a little bit earlier. You had mentioned that it only had internet data up through a certain date that's slightly old at this point.
Mhm.
Is there some kind of schedule that they'll be updating that on going forward?
I don't know their schedule, but I'm sure they're always working on improving and adding new data with it. So, and I think the upgraded version gives you first release of that type of stuff. But I do know that, yeah, 2021 is the date. They say limited knowledge of events after 2021.
And so the other question that came in was how much time or how much editing do you think this content that it generates then require before you as a business owner would be ready to
So yeah,
actually
it's a good question. And what you should do, like I'll scroll back to this blog post. You can, you theoretically can use all this content for free, but you should, number one, always proofread it to make sure it's accurate. You should make sure it's written in your own voice and make sure it actually seems like, you know, it reads well. I've read through these, and we're not going to take the whole time today. If someone would like, I could copy. So I can actually, I'll click copy, and if someone would like, I'll send them this blog post. They can read it for themselves to see how well it's written, how accurate it is, and if it makes sense. I've read through quite a few of these, and I can say they're written grammatically usually correct, and the content is usually spot on. So it's not always foolproof. I have caught mistakes with it before. So it's not, you know, it's not, so you definitely should not just always just do copy paste, copy it, put it in a word processor, read through it, edit it, make some changes, and then use it. Any other questions before I move on?
Those were the only two that had come in so far.
Okay. So again, low hanging fruit is the content creation, but maybe kind of creating marketing plans. That's kind of next level stuff. And then maybe some other stuff too, I think would be really good is on market research. So I'm going to ask it now, again, from the framework of the business owner who owns the hiking boot company. My target customers, male, aged 35 to 55, living in the Western US with incomes over 75,000. Help me analyze this segment. So it's going to create essentially a target market segment for it. So gives me demographic information, which we obviously already fed to it. But then it's also going to, so there's some demographic information, but now it's going to give us some psychographic information. So some stuff we didn't ask it about. It's making some assumptions that my target market is outdoor enthusiasts, health and wellness conscious, they like comfort and quality, and then also some ideas on marketing implications. So some ideas on what type of marketing I could use so it could kind of inform some of my marketing, right? So now I'm going to ask it some more quantitative stuff about my target market. So it knows now my target market is men aged 35 to 55 living in the Western US with incomes of over 75,000. I'm just going to say, can you tell me how many people actually exist in that market? So again, this is the type of market research you could do. You could go to the US Census Bureau and try to kind of cull all this information from it. But let's see if it actually will give me some actual statistics just to kind of give me sources of it. So here's where we could have a little bit of interface with it from my predetermined stuff. Let's say I'm going to give this a thumbs down vote. I'm going to say I don't like that. It would say so I'm going to say I want to know how many actual people are in my market. And so let's see if the new answer gives us some actual numbers. So here's the old answer on the left. And so now this new answer is actually giving us some actual data. So 47 million people in the US that age, assuming rough half have income over 75,000. So it's kind of whittling down here to some actual numbers. So that may or may not be valid. That might not be a great example, but that's the example of how to kind of give it some feedback on that type of response. So the next thing I was going to show you is any marketer should do consumer research. So one really great way to do that is through use of a customer survey. Writing customer surveys can kind of be difficult, making sure the questions are correct, but this could be sent through an email marketing or something like that. So I'm going to ask it to design a customer survey asking for basic demographic information and one open-ended question about what features of a hiking boot they'd like. So these first set of questions are pretty easy to analyze when you get the data back, right? There's going to be a certain amount that reply female, a certain amount that reply male, a certain amount that show income of C, D, or G, right? So getting that type of data, analyzing that type of data is pretty easy when you get these responses. But really, this question number 8, let's say you got 5,000 responses back on question number 8. What features are you looking for in a hiking boot? That's an open-ended question where a consumer could type in what features they're looking for in a hiking boot. And that's the type of stuff that can kind of be difficult or time-consuming to analyze. So what I did is I just wrote about 35 responses to that question as if I had got that survey, right? So here's a bunch of people that can say, I like boots that have ankle support, good traction and lightweight, right? So I'm going to ask ChatGPT to categorize the list of following attributes. So imagine if you got a survey with 5,000 responses back and you were asked to figure out what the top feature requests for your product are. That would be a really time-consuming thing to do. So this is kind of that data analysis that it can do. So it took that entire list and it categorized them into component parts, right? So we could review this as a business owner or a marketer and go, well, clearly out of those 35 or 40 responses, the top feature that people looking for in hiking boots is comfort. So again, that's something that can maybe help inform your marketing message or how you're going to reach your customers. So again, it took that whole list, this entire list of raw data that was not categorized. It looked at what those words meant and created categories and then dropped each one of those responses into a category, which could be super helpful, especially if you're using a huge, large data set. Some other, kind of data analysis stuff you could do. Let's say for the first month of sales, my company made a bunch of sales and I'm going to drop in the order value, the customer location, and the order type. And I'm going to ask ChatGPT to analyze, this set of sales data. So here's where, all my customers are coming from and what they're buying. And I'm going to ask, tell me some information about my data, right? So it's kind of giving some very basic stuff. It includes footwear. Montana has a high number of orders compared to other locations. The highest order was $5. Wyoming has a higher out order value compared to other locations. So it's basically taking a big data set and kind of giving you some analysis of it. So high demand for boots in Montana, Wyoming. So anyway, just kind of some interesting kind of, I would call this maybe level 2 analysis. The next and last kind of bit of data it could analyze is, let's say I could put in some of my website statistics. So here's site sessions, how someone viewed a product and then actually reached a checkout. So it's going to analyze my visitor stats to this website and kind of make some assumptions that would help me as a business owner understand what's going on when someone actually clicks through to my website, views a product, and actually checks out. So kind of, again, throwing some numbers at it, and it's doing some data analysis for it. That's kind of all I've got. Oh, I have one more thing that's kind of a bonus thing. In addition to, oh shoot, I gotta sign in here. It's not the right one. Hang on a second. I'm gonna stop my screen. I was gonna show a image generator. This is the right one, I think. Well, I'm not signed into it. I thought I had pulled up an image. Oh, here it is. Sorry.
We do have a couple of questions when you're ready for them, Rich.
Yep. Can you guys see my screen yet?
Nope, you're not sharing at the moment.
Go ahead and ask the questions while I'll share my screen and we can get into this.
So the first question is, can you please repeat the prompt used to get the week-long marketing plan?
Yeah, that was create a marketing plan / schedule for the week for social media and blog posts. Include Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter.
All right. And the second question that came in is, how effective is its research at smaller markets like Montana only, or maybe the 2 or 3 county region around my location?
Well, we could do that in real time here. Let's see. Does anybody want to give me a county or a question to ask it?
I got Hill County kind of came in.
So again, it's probably just going to pull this directly from U.S. Census Bureau's website. So 16,186. So you can see why I typed out the question before, because I can't spell people.
It's always easier to spell when people are watching you do it too.
Yeah, right. So let's ask, how many people in Hill County have incomes of over 75,000? So it's going to kind of give some basic data there. So again, this is the type of stuff you could go to the U.S. Census Bureau, or you could just Google that. But the Google is going to send you to a website. It may not be able to distill that information into succinctly like that. So this is the website. This is an image creator from this. This is using some OpenAI software, and you can type in prompts to get images. So I'm going to ask it to, can everybody see my screen?
Yep.
Create a realistic photo-like image of a man running on a trail near the ocean. So this is the best free AI image generator I've found. There's a couple other image generators that you can give prompts to, but it seems to be always return it in a more like an anime. So you know, these aren't like actual photos, so they're computer generated photos. You can see sometimes they look a little off, but kind of some interesting stuff you can do. And then you can also kind of make, you know, kind of do funny ones too. Like, so let's create a picture of a mountain goat wearing hiking boots riding a motorcycle. So it's thinking about it. So there's a couple of images of pretty close. There's a mountain goat wearing hiking boots riding a motorcycle. Did everything we asked it to. That's not quite right. That's literally a mountain goat riding a motorcycle, but so any, you know, again, some of this stuff's a little wonky because the computer's generating it. That's definitely a mountain goat riding a motorcycle. So that is Microsoft Bing using DALL-E. DALL-E is OpenAI's image generator. So it's the same kind of the same program using that. So any other questions? We're right at our half-hour mark here.
Yeah, well, let me first remind people, now's the time if you want to think about questions, to either type them in the chat window or be prepared in a minute here. I'll open it up if people want to unmute. But we do have one more question while people are possibly thinking of more. So here it is. Is the market research data provided by ChatGPT accurate? Does it need to be checked by going to the source cited by ChatGPT?
You know, so it's pulling stuff off, like it's the U.S. Census Bureau. So it's going to be up to you if you want to go spend the time and evaluate that on U.S. Census Bureau website yourself. So again, too, I think use it to the extent in which, you know, how accurate do you need it to be? So probably you should fact check it. If you're just trying to get a baseline number, then might be good enough. But if you've got to cite it for an academic study, then probably you should do some more research on it.
All right, yeah, source citing was coming to my mind when I read that question as well. So, and then can you clarify too, when will it be updated to include information past 2021?
I don't know the answer to that. I imagine they're continuously working on it, but I have not read any information on when it might be, you know, done past then.
All right, are there any other questions? Feel free to unmute if you'd like and ask questions that way as well.
Let me ask real quick, anybody out there see an application for this in their, maybe if you're not doing marketing, but an application in anything they might do in other workflows or other processes? Don't everybody answer at once. Joel, how about you? Could it help you in any of your workflows or processes?
Did you say Jen?
Jen or Joel, anybody? Yeah.
Oh, you have used it a couple times to draft email responses. When clients were looking for help producing material, also for event content information drafting. But I have found that those things can be pretty generic sounding unless you do what you did, Rich, and make sure to put in sort of the who, what, where, when, why. The more specific prompts give better responses.
Right. And actually, I don't think I have it on one of my slides, but I actually didn't get to it. And that is higher quality inputs will result in higher quality outputs. So typically on the input should look something, the nomenclature should be like, write me a kind of text that is, and then style, featuring characteristics. So an example would be like, write me a blog post that is funny on why wintertime in Montana is fun. So again, that has the kind of text in a certain style or tone, featuring highlights or characteristics of a certain thing. So yeah, the better your input, the better the output will be. And I have actually helped two clients, not on the marketing side, but I had a client who had to have, as part of an application for something, I don't even remember what, I mean, she had to have basically a library of procedures that were based on a certain criteria out there. And it would have taken her, she estimated, probably 2 to 3 days to write these procedure manuals. And we were able to give those prompts to ChatGTP, and it created these procedure manuals for her. She had to read through and edit them and make sure they were accurate, but it saved her probably over a day of work on creating policy and procedure manuals.
So one comment come in, just that some chatbots have a problem called artificial hallucination, where they confidently make up data that may not be accurate. So always a good idea to check data. So
Yep. I heard a story about ChatGTP wrote an academic paper on rocket science, and it had all the right terms, but it was all garbage. It didn't mean anything.
Rich, this is Steve Claremont. How did you do the thumbs down response to the question where you weren't happy with the response?
Yeah, so just right here is a thumbs up, thumbs down. So
We can't see your screen right now.
oh, sorry. Thank you. So after the reply is generated, there's a thumbs up, thumbs down. And so if you give it a thumbs down, it'll ask you specifically why it wasn't helpful. And then if you submit that, usually, oh yeah, so here's the original answer, and then it generates a new answer for you.
Thank you.
Still generating the new answer.
kind of a last call here. Any additional questions?
Jennifer has her hand up.
So I've seen some things about, ChatGPT and plagiarism, and that maybe that's not an issue for marketing, but I just wanted to ask, is that something that businesses should be keeping in mind when using this? And are there any ways to check for that?
Yeah, so in theory, because it's generating new content based on existing content, in theory, it shouldn't be plagiarizing. But you should actually, if you're going to be using this content, you should, number one, maybe edit it a little bit, which would save it from being completely plagiarism if that exists. The next thing too is there are places out there, and I should look up. There's duplicate content checkers on the internet, so you can go to these websites and drop a bunch of content into it, and then it'll return instantly and tell you if that content is duplicate of something else out there. So they're essentially plagiarism checkers. So while ChatGTP shouldn't, in theory, it should all be new content that it's creating, because it's generating new stuff. To be on the safe side, you should maybe use one of these plagiarism or content checkers to make sure you're not duplicating content out there. In fact, as a live demonstration, let's ask, let me get back. I'll just do this one last time here. Let's ask the robot itself. So I'm going to ask, can I use your blog content on my website? Let's see what it says itself. So I don't own the blog content I generate. So essentially it's telling you, yeah, you can use the blog content it generates. So check if, make sure it's not copyrighted. So again, that's where those duplicate content creators and plagiarism checkers would be helpful. All right, any other questions?
Any final questions for Rich? Well, Rich, thank you very much for taking the time to introduce me, at least for the first time, to this topic and maybe improve the skills of some others. Please note, June 1st at 11 will be our next session, talking about payroll reporting as well for that. So mark your calendars for that one, June 1st at 11. And the recording of today's session will be posted to our website either later today or tomorrow. Rich, any final comments from you?
Just if you have any questions, feel free to reach out to me. I will be sending a follow-up email to the people that registered through my end, but get a hold of Joel through the way you logged in here if you want to reach me directly. And I think, like I said, I think treat this as a way to augment what you're doing and then maybe speed up some of your processes. I don't think it's necessarily going to replace people yet, but I think it's a really great tool, especially for content creation.
All right. Well, thank you very much, Rich, and I hope everyone has a great rest of their day.
Thanks, everybody.